Aha!
Are we on?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
That's it. Live. Us. Now. The Jimmy Doan Show. If you're tuned in, you're one of the lucky few. The very few.
Very few, that's right. Well,
but we do this twice a week.
we do have unlimited bandwidth in case they want to tell their friends.
That's right. That's right. You can share this with everybody.
It's not like a phone line where, you have one person.
That's right. It's a party line. Everybody off.
That's right.
No, but we do this twice a week, so there's opportunities at 4 o'clock Eastern, Wednesdays and Sundays. And we'll be right here. Also, I'll post a timestamp copy, all the subjects identified individually up on YouTube and on Twitter. And then audio, we're available around the web. Search for Jimmy Doan. So today is the 2nd of October, 2019. Whoops.
Yep, there we are. Well, I was in the store the other day and I noticed that we're going to skip over Halloween and Thanksgiving and go straight to Christmas. So,
Really?
yeah, there's the Christmas stuff is coming out. There's some Halloween stuff in the background. But anyway, I just thought that was interesting. Because when I was growing up, of course, you didn't start Christmas until Black Friday.
They're cheating on the season.
That's right. Breaking news.
Aha.
Breaking news.
Yes.
Bernie.
Yes.
Heart, quote, not really an attack.
I saw this. I cannot believe Hillary took him out that fast.
I'll tell you, it is.
Well, bam.
That's it.
Getting her way.
Bye-bye. And, that's right.
I think you have a visit with the doctor.
And so, stints in, and of course they have canceled everything for a while until he recovers.
Well, have they canceled the debate? Is the question.
Ooh, good point. That's on 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Ooh, they didn't say. So that might open up a spot.
Now the truth is, there would be nothing wrong with him getting canceled for a little while. I don't think he'd slip in the polls or anything if he could come back. But if this is something
He's a 79-year-old with a heart attack. Now I really
they say that, right?
I know that. But when I look at somebody like what's his name on late night, the guy, I forget which one, but he had like 3 heart attacks. So is Larry King. Larry King had 5 heart attacks and 8 wives. I mean, and he was still going strong. So it's not to say that you couldn't run the entire country from your bedside.
Yeah. Well, the question is though. I mean, obviously the country's not going to put anybody in there who doesn't pass the physical, and there would be some people, I'm sure, raising that.
Yeah, of course they will. What's interesting, he's got a lot of money. He had just gotten ready to put on a media blitz, but he's apparently just raised $25 million or something, which is that's enough to get started.
Yeah, well, we've said all along he's going to be number 3, or was going to be number 3. It was going to be Trump, some other Democrat, and Bernie before it's all over.
Well, it will be interesting to see how the other candidates tread so lightly on this. To say, well, hopes and prayers, love him to death,
sure.
Marvelous guy.
This is an easy one because either he's hurt and it's serious and he will drop out and they just have to wait, or it's not and then they shouldn't make a big deal of it. So either way, you just wait for a week and all will be revealed.
All will be revealed.
Exactly.
Okay. I just thought breaking news. I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, we
should talk about it. Now, another thing, I need to have your input on this. I thought this was kind of interesting.
Okay.
The former Dallas police officer Amber Guyger was
convicted.
She was nailed. I mean, convicted. Whatever it was of murder.
Yes.
Not homicide. Not negligent.
It's the same thing. It's the same thing.
Is it?
Yeah, in their parlance, this is the news reporting as far as they're concerned.
Oh, okay.
And
they said she could get up to 99 years or something.
She got 15.
Oh, did she get? Okay, yeah. They had she got 15.
Yeah.
Now, what was interesting was I saw a take on your take from our last show, which was how she could get off.
Yeah.
And in fact, somebody else kind of almost said exactly what you did, which is, hey. Everybody else said you could park on the wrong floor. 13-hour shift. Tired. Went in and the door went open.
Right.
And
freaked out immediately.
And all of a sudden there's an intruder in your house.
That's it.
And what do you do?
That's it.
So I'm kind of surprised that in a way, I guess the.
This is a lesson. There's a lesson in this one.
Okay, what is it?
The lesson is don't take the stand.
Oh, okay, right.
Don't take the stand. That's what killed
That's
her.
what killed her. Took the stand.
She
Okay.
took the stand. I guarantee you, the jury, because nobody wants to be played. They don't mind if the lawyer fools them, but if they let her off and the whole thing was acting, then it's egg all over their faces in terms of
Okay.
the jury. So you can't put them in the position of having to make the call on, oh, please believe me, because.
Uh-huh.
You're even, no matter how good you communicate that, and apparently she cried and did the whole thing, they're just not going to let themselves buy that.
Okay.
Exactly. So
15 years, though, that's,
yeah, it's rough.
it's going to be rough, that's for sure. Okay, do you want to talk about the impeachment at all?
Yeah. One other thing. Well, never mind. The impeachment, the
Okay, the
Inquisition.
impeachment. Well, it's interesting
Well-
to me, of course, as you know, the Democrats are sitting there, Russia, and that all went away. And now Mueller, and
Well-
that seems to have kind of gone away.
Well, yeah. Well, that was Russia.
Oh, well, that's right. But the other thing, what was the other thing that they glommed onto? Well, anyway, now it's impeachment.
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that Rush it's on the website someplace, had a monologue that he did on it, and really pretty well outlined it. But the thing about it is Hillary Clinton says evidence for impeachment inquiry is dramatic and irrefutable.
Of course she does.
Former Secretary of State, presidential, she dismissed concerns that Democrats are overreacting in their impeachment inquiry, President calling the evidence in the center dramatic and irrefutable. Let me go on here.
Sure.
The evidence concerning Ukraine is so dramatic and irrefutable. Again, the words, because it came right out of the White House, she says on Good Morning America. She was there alongside her daughter Chelsea to promote her book that they co-wrote, The Book of Gutsy Women, a collection of essays about more than 100 inspirational women throughout history. Of course, this reminds me a little bit of Warren's cookbook that was plagiarized. What do you do? You go to you go to the Encyclopedia Britannica, okay? You're old, elderly, moldy, and you go through the famous women, and you plagiarize the shit out of it, and there's your book. So we're promoting the book and we're doing great. But I thought this, so let the impeachment inquiry proceed, she says. I know they will do a thoughtful job and nobody should jump to any conclusions, as she just did.
Well, I think she's going to play it just right. I think she'll be fine. I think she would give Donald a lot of trouble if she decides to jump in. And now, after she's taken out Bernie,
Right.
So this is the thing: is look for Liz to have some kind of an accident here in the next couple of weeks, right? If she accidentally shoots herself in the back with an arrow or something.
Right.
Or,
Well, an arrow would be appropriate.
that's what I'm saying. She's down at one of those chop and hop places. Have you seen? We've got one here. Chops and hops.
No, what is that?
Where you throw tomahawks.
Oh, really?
And they serve beer.
Okay.
What could possibly go wrong?
What
right?
could possibly? Well, you know what? Speaking of that, just as a quick aside,
This show brought to you
One of
by
the-
Chops and Hops, located in the old Walker Furniture off 13th Street.
that's right. They just opened up. One of the funny, when you talk about throwing the hatchet, of course, you remember when the Indian guy, this is all over YouTube, 30 years ago, this guy who was an Indian, and he played an Indian on TV. He was a famous actor, was on the Johnny Carson show. And so they got, I guess they got
Is this the guy who did the pollution ad or what?
No, this is the
Okay.
guy, he was going to show everybody how to throw a tomahawk.
Oh, okay.
So he there was a picture of a person
Right.
on this thing, and he threw this tomahawk, and of course it stuck in the board exactly the wrong place, and it looked like this giant penis.
Oh, God.
It was just, of course they went nuts. This was
Right.
the day when you didn't do that, but
Yeah.
it was like so anyway, that's one of the things on YouTube. You can see throwing a tomahawk. What could go wrong? Okay.
Right. So look for Liz to have an automatic car ride into the ditch or something. Who knows? But yeah, no, I could see Hillary giving the Donald some trouble. So maybe she'll jump in.
I don't see it. And of course, it's interesting. She claims
She's a lot better at playing the crowd than any of these other people.
Well, that's true. She is,
They're
and of course,
horrible.
she says maybe she's got some new advisors, but she says, here mistakes were made,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't be made again.
Yeah, well, and that's probably true. I mean, she could clean up. Look, he won by slim margins in a few states.
Well, not only that,
put
she
him
won
over.
by 3 million in the.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
So it's not anywhere near out of the question.
She has to go camp out up in those 3 states.
Well, sure, and why not? Why
Yeah.
wouldn't you? And
Right.
so that's what you do. And she could come down here to Florida. That's what I would do. Hit Florida super
Right.
hard and try to turn it, because it's, I think, still in play. And the Donald may have lost some support by blowing his economic agenda so hard.
True.
By doing a 180 reversal. But as you point out, those people aren't really going to vote for Hillary
Right.
at the end of the day. They may not show up, though.
Right.
And if they don't show up, that may be enough to throw some weight behind the hill.
Well, that would be such a fascinating. I mean,
Oh, it would be
This
great.
is the kind of stuff you can't make this stuff up.
No, well, it would be making it up.
Actually,
because
yeah, right, yeah.
What it would be great, see now, if she's smart, and she is, she would go to her Hollywood people and she'd look. I need half a dozen comedy writers, okay, on staff. I need them on my Twitter. I need them on these things, and it all has to go through the lawyer or something.
Right.
But basically, we're going to out Donald the Don, right? Because Donald set a new personal record in September for tweets.
Oh, is that right? 10,000.
800.
Okay.
No, 800, which is more than 24 a day.
Yeah. Well, as we've always said, people are always talking about the
Transparency.
Right.
Man, you can't get any
You
more
can't
transparent.
get any more.
And here's the thing. You know that he is personally typing those tweets in. That is...
Let me put it this way: at the very least, he's dictating them.
yeah.
You think he's actually doing? Now, of course, one of the things about Twitter, if you've got a smartphone, as you well know, we
Yeah.
do this all the time. You talk it.
Right, and that would also explain the stupid misspellings.
That's right, exactly right. That would explain that.
So that, I mean, but to me, I don't see him relinquishing control of the Twitter account to any staff member or anything. I'm sure he believes that he's the best
Oh, no
at
question.
Twitter, and he is.
He's a Hollywood star, for God's sake.
I agree. He is a showman. I mean, this is straight out of WWE. But see, I think that, and that's world wrestling,
Yeah.
And so, but I think Hillary could match him in those games. I think she can stand up on the stage. She's got enough stage time. She knows it's about a show. Like Liz, you look at somebody like Liz, and she's got nothing except for, we're going to fight for the American people. And it's just all a screaming match at these sort of hollow things. She never goes, there's never a back and forth. Hillary will take a little, which you have to admit like Liz will go down hard when it comes to like the funding on the Medicare, for example. If they were to go head to head, he would just sit there and say, how much is it going to cost? And she would say, well, you can't measure that against the blah, blah. And he would say, how much? And she would say, well, you still can't. How much? How much is it? And that's how it would be stuck in everybody's mind. How much?
You're right.
And so he wins that debate. And also, I mean, nobody else can stand up there on the debate. The people who are up there now.
Yeah.
But Hillary could do it.
Okay.
So-
Well, maybe she's not exactly the master persuader, as Scott Adams says.
No,
And
but
he's the one that has the visuals all the time.
well, it's true. I think, and I agree with Scott that Trump is operating at a different level
Totally.
all the time. But at least she is in that scope. That is, she's playing the same game that he is. She
Okay.
knows it's a show. She knows it's for the audience. She knows it's tit for tat. It's right. You got to be on it. You can't just, like Kamala Harris, she'll just say something stupid and laugh like it's a joke. And
Yeah, right.
everybody's like,
somebody
what?
needs to tell her. Well, I think that's another thing that Scott Adams said. She's gotten a new person because her tweets apparently are a little better. But he says here are the 3 things she needs to do, and one of them was lose the laugh.
Yeah, totally. And she thinks she's way funnier than she is.
Right.
Hillary at least has a much better read of the crowd. And if she plays to her base, plays to her people, that's all she has to do. Go around, and so...
So of course, the problem is, and what she's got to lose is the phoniness. Like when she's going out there and eating at some cafe, and I always bring my Tabasco sauce. I'm what? Get about it.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Going up against Trump in that regard, no problem. Bernie was the problem there, because that's Bernie's Bernie's whole pitch is when he takes the stage, I know what Bernie says is what he believes.
Yeah.
When he says there should be no billionaires, he means if he could freaking take a gun and literally to turn in your money right now, he would go down the line and then he would throw them all into jail in the Hoosgow immediately. That would be, and he would do it. He would say it and then do it. Hillary is, at the end of the day, about the same place politically as the Donald is. Sort of a middle-of-the-road Democrat. In terms of all the policies, they're both willing to spend trillions of dollars on infrastructure. They're willing to raise taxes or lower taxes as befits the moment. And the same in terms of probably, maybe she's more hawkish in war than he is.
Maybe, yeah.
But still, we're talking about
and you got to think about who her advisors are going to be.
Well, same crowd,
That's
same
right.
people.
That's true.
And so
get Bolton back in.
Exactly. I mean, literally, they'll exchange a few people, but they're much more like than Bernie or Liz would be, and so.
Well, I did see that somebody was called up the owner of Twitter and said
that's Harris.
Is that what
Jack put a lid on this? It's the stupidest.
Hi Jack. Hi Jack.
Yeah.
Hi Jack. Could you get rid of Trump's Twitter account?
Yeah, exactly.
Good luck.
Well, no. Well, stupid. First of all, he's their number one. Her insult again. This is straight off the playground. It's. I don't like him, yeah, or something.
Well,
It's just
I was telling Mrs. Jimmy today, and some other people said this. The reason for Trump to be impeached these days is because he's a duty head.
Right. Well, exactly.
That's it.
Well, look at this
We
little
don't
list,
like him.
a
He's a
short
duty
list
head.
of things that I noticed he should be impeached for this week. Where he quoted somebody else saying that if he were to be impeached, there would be a civil war-like rift in the country.
Okay.
And that was reported as Trump calls for civil war in case of impeachment.
Right.
And of course, there's nothing like that. Like I said, he was quoting somebody else. And of course, some news person came out and said that, in and of itself, is impeachable because he's calling for civil war.
Right.
And then somebody else came out and said, well, the way that he's talking about the whistleblower is a threat to the whistleblower's life, a violation of the whistleblower statute, and impeachable all in and of itself.
Right.
Okay? Look, here's what it comes down to. I'm going to lay out the standard so that everybody knows.
All right, good.
If anybody has to explain why an act is impeachable, it's not impeachable.
Right, exactly right. Exactly right. Well,
if you don't know right away, but if I say he stole $1 million, he killed somebody, the things, we know what they are. And
well,
everybody
you've
does.
noticed the what is impeachable keeps rotating around.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, well, that was impeachable yesterday, and now it's not. Oh, I'm sorry, we got a new one.
Well, it doesn't matter what you say. It doesn't matter what anybody says. If they start off by saying, well, the reason it's impeachable is, or, well, if you refer back to this statute, or technically speaking, or anything like that, it's not going to work.
Right.
Or it shouldn't work anyway.
Yeah.
All they should have to say is, you know what he did.
Well, it is interesting that I have seen an awful lot of the stuff that, once again, once fool me once, fool me. The thing about the media is you fool them 100 times. Okay.
Well, this is the laundry list attack.
I know it's a laundry list, but I understand that part. It's got to be one of these things. Throw enough on the wall, maybe something will
smoke
stick.
everywhere. Oh my God, nobody's ever seen a spark.
But what gets me is the times that like yesterday. Now this is it. Well, this is it.
We've been through the montage of this is it
for a year and a half or 2 years.
It's a bombshell, beginning and the end. Bombshell.
I was looking today. There was an article. Literally, the word bombshell was used in the first one at the lead in the first 3 paragraphs.
It's part of the montage on YouTube. You can see, and every one that they do, I think, makes him more impervious to the last one.
Right. I'm thinking, in a way, my thing was that he's smart enough to be trolling these people to get them all fired up.
Well, some people said that. Some people said that with the last one because he released a video of them getting it wrong, like within the hour of the story being reported. So he already had the video prepared.
Yeah.
Or he's got somebody who's quick on the draw with the editing, which is probably, I'm thinking it's B, but still. That would obviously indicate some high level trolling.
Yeah.
But
okay. The let's see. We have another. This is only very quickly. the Chris Collins is resigning from his seat.
Yes.
And he was a Trump supporter, big Trump
was he?
supporter. Yeah, he was one of the first ones that endorsed him, I guess, or whatever it was. But apparently, he did insider
Where is he
trading.
from?
He is from. Well, I think he's from New York.
Yeah, I was thinking that too.
Yeah, New York Republican.
Okay.
Amid reports he expected to change his plea to guilty for insider trading.
Yeah.
And what happened was he was on the board of this, I think an Australian company or something like
Okay.
that. And he had 14% of the stock. I mean, he was a major stockholder and on the board, which makes sense.
Yeah.
And so what happened was the CFO called him up, as one time and said, listen, it looks like the report coming out tomorrow is going to look bad. Because our drug that we had put for whatever the disease was, it was a
Didn't
multiple
get approval
sclerosis.
or whatever.
Yeah, multiple sclerosis is just failed the tests. So apparently, he calls up his son, and they unloaded a bunch of shares, like I don't know, about $5 million worth of shares or something, and they found out about it. So there's a couple of things. The reason I brought this up is because. The insider trading statute is one of those that I've always felt was when we talk about intellectual, IP, intellectual property, and how all the stuff, the copyrights and all that stuff should be not there.
Yeah.
And this is one of those things that insider trading, as far as I'm concerned, is it shouldn't be there.
Yeah, I'm with you.
As far as I'm concerned, what you do is if you have people that are on the board and are insiders, that's who you invest with. I mean, those are the people that you go to.
If you trust their judgment.
If you trust their judgment. Now, you might end up with a Bernie Madoff,
Right.
which could be a problem. I understand.
Well, you're right.
get
You have
hurt.
to trust them and their judgment. That's the thing. Is at the end of the day, they may be perfectly trustworthy and just making a bad call.
Right.
And so if you buy on that news,
Let me tell
or
you,
sell on the news,
well, again, but you know that they're an insider, and of course, the first time that they're an insider, let's say, since and they screw it up, you think, well, wait a minute, I'm never going to trust this guy again because why would he knows he's an insider and he knew this was going to
Well,
take.
think about the collapse of Joseph Cook from last week.
Yes.
Okay, so here's this multi-billion-dollar company.
Right.
And if you had the inside information the week before, I'm sure the inside information was everything's fine. We're all good here.
Right.
And so, leave your money here. Hey, no problem.
Yeah.
And
You're stranded city.
so I mean, now maybe somebody had the inside information on that.
Well, one of the things that you do
What-
and
no.
you expect to see, for instance, on Kramer and stuff like that, is they're the ones that go into detail on the 10 whatever the reports are that's submitted,
Yeah.
and the footnotes and the stuff that, like Cook, for instance, had just borrowed $1 billion or
Yeah.
something to keep afloat, and some analyst should have come up and said, "Wait a minute,
Right.
maybe it's time for us to get out of here." And of course, that was what happened when the meltdown in
Well,
2008.
and that's the perfect reason why there shouldn't be laws about insider trading.
Right.
Because if there's a person on the outside that describes the person you just described, that is an analyst who has read the report, the same report that's available to everybody in the company, and they understand better the implications of what's going on, then you trust that person
Right.
in terms of their analysis of what's going on, and you're inside enough. And so,
Well, the other thing is,
and also they're an unbiased person. They're not. If you
you mean the analysts?
yeah, the
Right.
analyst. Like if you trade based on what the person on the super inside, somebody on the board, they may be biased.
Right. Well, they might be. You got to be careful about what they call pump and dump people. It's
Right.
A lot of this stuff is one of the
The
reasons.
IPOs. Have you seen recently?
Yes.
3 or 4 different IPOs.
Did you see
WeWork and
WeWork?
Peloton.
They said. So I was reading something the other day that said, "How is WeWork looking at $40 billion?" And the guy says, "It wasn't $10 billion."
Right.
For
and that's what happened. It
Right, that's it.
collapsed
And it collapsed.
immediately.
Right.
And so here's none of those people who had inside information about the price and stock availability. They don't get to sue anybody because they got bad information.
Right.
So why would they be punished if they got good information? It's just
Right. Well, you think about it because you think about SoftBank and some other people that were heavy on the first or second round in the WeWork thing. They lost their ass.
Sure, exactly. Tons of people did.
So they,
Yeah.
And another thing,
Uber and Lyft have been crashing right now as
Right.
well,
Yeah.
and the new IPO from
but
Endeavor.
Bitcoin is up.
Well, it's back in the 82.
No,
range.
92, I think.
I
this
saw,
morning.
I saw 82.
Okay, maybe.
But there was a big IPO from a guy. One of the Hollywood agencies is trying to go public.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and it's a super famous guy. This guy Ari Emanuel, I think is his name, and the
Right.
Entourage TV show is based in part off of his character. And
Okay.
They bought out MCI and what the other big agency that everybody knows. That anyway, and they were trying to go public. Well, no such luck. The market is not having it right now.
Yeah.
So they said they're going to retry in 6 months or something. We'll see. There was a big tank, obviously, today of 500 points or something.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Well, that means so far. Well, let me see.
It's closed.
It closed, 24 minutes ago.
Yeah. As of about 3 o'clock, it was down 500 points.
Okay, well, wow.
So,
Mrs. Jimmy's not going to be happy about that.
no, we could get a note from corporate.
We'll get a
today.
note from corporate. Well, I just think that, as I say, the insider business is that the market works it all out.
Yeah.
Once everybody knows that it's rigged, only it's not rigged, because right now, you can still get hosed like Bernie Madoff or something.
Sure.
People do the, and so where's the protection on this? So if you have to take individual responsibility, or you get a guy like for instance Kramer, for instance, is one of these people who on the long haul makes money. But I have seen him make recommendations, and he's read all the stuff. He had the CEOs in. I remember 2 CEOs and they're touting this, and he's going through all the numbers and everything, and the stocks tanked in the next 6 months after that.
Look, as you've always said, at the end of the day, it's just people acting. And you never know why they're going to take whatever action. They may not like the...
Well, not only that, the thing is, there's 7.5 billion people on the planet that one way or the other have an effect on all of this stuff. I mean, it may be tiny, minuscule, but the simple fact is, this is the butterfly in Thailand causes the hurricanes.
Yeah, well, like you said, there can be a wave either way.
Either way, that's the other thing. And of course, a lot of times emotion, I'd hate to be one of these guys, one of the brokers on Wall Street, because they get caught up in this, sell, or whatever it is. I mean, just, it's, they do.
They're trained not to get caught up into it.
You say that, but look,
Look, at the end
they're
of the
trained
day-
to not be emotional.
Well, look, at the end of the day, you have to play the man, not the game. And so they have to play what everybody else is playing. If everybody starts playing, it's like a run on the banks. If everybody does it, then you have to do it. There's no...
Well, there's always, as I say, there's the one thing we've always talked about is the people that make the country great are the speculators. And these are the people that when everybody else is selling, dumping everything, these are people that are buying it up. They're the ones that support it.
Well, sure, there's got to be
But I mean, if you eliminate, it's funny because very often you'll see the people up in Congress, they're horrible speculators that are ruining everything. No, you
Well, of
understand.
course.
They are essential to the operation.
Yeah, they're a piece of the wheel. It's
they are a huge piece of it.
It's like saying, well, the side of the wheel isn't doing anything right now,
Yeah.
so we can take that out.
All right, we're moving along. Let's see, we've got a little bit in England. The Democratic October. We do have, let's see, in 2 weeks we have the debate.
Yes.
Do you want to talk about that at all? Do you care?
Well, I think we did a little bit. We
Okay.
think
there
I
are
think
12 and maybe 13. So far, right. Yeah, with one tank. It might there's at least, they have until today, I think. No, yesterday. They had until yesterday to get their numbers up to
is that
qualify.
right?
I think that's right. So we don't know. I don't know for sure if anybody did, but anyway, it's going to be aired live at 8 p.m. And so forth. And the moderators will be CNN and the New York Times. Okay, well, softball city, excuse me.
hard-hitting journalism.
Hard-hitting journalism, that's right. Not too worried about that. The other thing I have here, I've got a little bit from England.
Yes.
You want to talk about that for a minute?
Well, only I don't know what's going on.
I don't either. But I did. What I did do was, let me see what I did.
To me, it's almost like the news over here, the news cycle. You see so much that contradicts, and it's so different. The facts asserted are, on the one hand, Boris is fine and everything's treading along nicely, and on the other hand, he's going to jail tomorrow.
Right, exactly.
And
who knows
he's
what
going to be hung by Friday or something.
Dominic Griev, I don't know who he is, said that if Boris Johnson fails to abide by the Ben Act by October 19th, he would face a walkout of the civil service. Speaking to Sky News, Mr. Johnson would be taken. He said Boris would be taken to court. I suspect the courts would deal with it very quickly if he continued to ignore the law. At that stage, the cabinet secretary and the civil service would refuse to work for him, and he'll be out in 5 minutes. And when asked if that meant dismissal by the Queen, yes, it's a rather hypothetical position. And if he intends to continue behaving in this completely ludicrous fashion, yes, perhaps. So.
Yeah,
this is the opposition.
Right, obviously. When somebody characterizes anybody's action as completely ludicrous, then you know that's hyperbole, because
and these people all know each other.
I mean, it's ludicrous.
You'd have to be certifiable in order to go through this stuff if you didn't have something in your back pocket. I mean, what we're hearing is from this opposition.
Right, they're playing to a broader audience.
Right.
So
I just thought that was kind of interesting. Now, one thing that did happen in England, which I thought was interesting, is that the national living wage is going to be raised to £10.50, which is about, I think, isn't that about, what is a pound these days? Not much more than $1, is it? No, that's a euro. It's
yeah, no, that's a good question. I was just going to answer in euros as well.
No,
it might be 1.5.
Yeah, I think it's 1.5. So it's $15 or something like that. To everyone over 21. Now, one of the things I thought he's announced an increase in the national living wage by 2024. This is going to be, and of course, this is one of those things where you go into the future and maybe I'll be dead by then.
Right.
So I just, this 5 years.
Come back and ask me in 2050.
Come back. You're right, exactly. 2050, we're all going to be dead. Well, I might be pumping up. Well, I won't be pumping up any daisies because we won't have any daisies, or that's all we'll have. Anyway, down from the present. Apparently, the minimum wage cuts in at 25 currently. Chancellor made the announcement at the Conservative Party conference in Manchester. He said, "Over the next 5 years, we will make the United Kingdom the first major economy in the world to end low pay forever." Now, I got a news flash. I mean, you have got to be laughing hysterically at this, because what he's trying to do is his target is for the national living wage, raising it to match 2/3 of the median earnings and giving 4 million people a well-earned pay raise. Now, here's the question. If they're not earning this pay raise. I mean, somebody's imposing it. I mean, and it's so funny about this, because if they were already earning it, they wouldn't need.
I wave my magic wand.
That's right, exactly.
And the money appears in your pocket.
I just thought.
Vote for me.
Currently, the national living wage is somewhere around £8.
Here is your gas money.
But I'm laughing because one of the things that you find is that one of the things that a minimum wage does is it's so discriminatory, because it turns out that somebody who's not worth £10.50, £10.50 pounds, doesn't get a job. They're out. Their minimum wage is zero.
Yeah.
And
people are starting to recognize that minimum wage definitely costs jobs. And at the low end.
Right, that's the thing.
Right.
The people that it's designed.
The objectors are saying it doesn't matter because nobody needs those jobs. But I think that, from my perspective, certainly entry-level people, like kids, and also people's first jobs, and then also exit level, senior citizens.
Right.
The same thing. You just have a little, like the baggers that we have at our Publix.
Right, or the greeters. They were going to get rid of the greeters. But now, along that line, Do you have anything else to say?
Well, no, I just posted up a bunch of comparative minimum wages from around the world.
Okay.
And so,
Well, we've talked about this one time before, and that in Denmark and some places, they have no minimum wage.
no minimum wage law,
Right, no
And
minimum
a
wage
very
law.
high minimum wage.
But they do have,
Yeah, I didn't notice it on those particular charts. It's kind of interesting because it had Luxembourg as the highest, or Australia, and
Okay.
So-
Anyway, well, of course, Luxembourg's like 50 people or something. I mean, you know. But speaking of that, this robot can make 300 pizzas an hour. Seattle startup Picnic announced Tuesday has developed a unit that can make 300 12-inch pizzas per hour and 180, about half, 18 inches pizzas per hour. What the Pizza Bot does, it does its share of the work. Let me see, does its share of the work. Dough preparation, sauce making, and baking are all done by non-robots. So there's still some people there. But after that, it's all robotic. So guess what? You can take your $15 minimum wage and shove it, because this is now the robot. So and that goes in here. Once an order is placed, it enters a digital queue. The robot starts making the pie. As soon as the dough is in place, the system sends back to Picnic via the internet in order for the robot to learn from its mistakes. So apparently this is kind of an AI thing, heuristic programming. But what I'm saying is that 300 an hour robot, somebody's buying that and eliminating some jobs, although maybe the people that make the robots now have jobs, I don't know.
there's that, and then there's the people who will get robot franchises.
Yeah.
A single person somewhere in Dubai or India or
Yeah.
something gets a robot and services a community.
Yeah.
So
This would be great. Now, one thing I did find is kind of a little light note, and that is I finally found a really good use for cocaine. And this is you always see this sign when
what's
you're
wrong with the old use?
so I'm saying this is an
Okay.
add-on. And what happens is, as you know, when you get on the airplane, you're going overseas, in case of emergency, your seat cushion is a flotation device.
Yes.
Well, it turns out shipwrecked Colombians clung to cocaine bales before they were rescued. And they had a picture of them.
Yeah.
And there's bales of cocaine floating, and here are the Colombians hanging on to. So, hey,
I don't know what this stuff is.
I don't know,
but
man.
I am glad it
I
floats.
fell out, then, I'm just in it. I just thought, you're being rescued to do what? I don't know. Just
Hey.
a new use for cocaine. When all else fails, throw them out of the plane, boys, and hop out.
It worked.
I just think it's hysterical. So now the other thing I found that was kind of interesting here, we're moving right along rapidly. Officials found this is in China. Officials found a stash of gold bars and 20 billion British pounds in cash in the basement of an allegedly corrupt Chinese mayor.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I got a news flash for you. I know you have to use allegedly, but if you didn't, let's say...
Yeah, but in China, they may have just wheeled that stuff in right before they busted him.
Yeah. It was, the thing is, the stash of gold bars was allegedly had a portfolio of luxury properties, and of course he's going to face the death penalty.
Yeah.
If he's found guilty of, quote, economic crimes. Something. But I looked at the stash of gold bars. When I didn't know wheelbarrow worth, that was like a front loader worth. I mean, we're talking. I forget exactly what the weight was, but it's 30 billion pounds in cash, which is like, we've done this before, right? When you say here's stacked up a million, and then here's stacked up a billion, and I mean it stretches to the horizon.
Yeah.
And so
30 billion is a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you were in fact, this is 22 billion, I think, behind you.
Okay.
So
30 billion would have been a little bit more.
yeah, exactly.
Okay. Still, it's not anything that you're going to be carting in your
A
suitcase.
room full
Yeah,
of money.
exactly. Oh my God. So anyway, he's looks like he's going to face the death penalty for some reason. They do that over there.
Oh yeah, and it'll be quick too.
That's the other thing. I'm not going to wait around. Now,
Man.
the other thing that I love about our Congress, and this is one of the things that's interesting in a way, the Senate Democrats call on the IRS to investigate NRA's tax-exempt status. Now, you remember when before we had with Lois Lerner or whatever it was, IRS, and there was a lot of stuff that had to do with the
they investigated a bunch of Republicans or something.
well, right. They investigated Republicans, and they didn't give them their status on a nonprofit status.
Oh, right, yeah.
Okay, I mean that was kind of a bit of a scandal, but
Yeah.
nobody ever got caught. Nobody cared. Nobody did anything. Top Senate Democrats on Wednesday called to determine the IRS of whether the National Rifle Association should be stripped of its tax-exempt status. An investigation by the Senate Finance Committees found the NRA. Now, by the way, the top Democrats are Pelosi and what's his name?
Schumer.
Yeah, those are the two top that are calling for this. Relationship for the nonprofit status, using the organization's money to develop relationship during the 2016 election with two Russian nationals, the deputy governor of the Central Bank of Rhodesia, Alexander, what's his name, and unregistered foreign agent Marina Butina, who we've talked about before.
Yeah.
She was the girl. But what I'm loving about this in a way is they had violated its nonprofit status. This is Russia all over again.
Well, this is a backdoor attack at the NRA.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
For some reason, I guess they're convinced that the NRA keeps the Second Amendment afloat. Whenever I see...
Yeah, but I mean, so what's so bad about that?
Well, it's not that it's bad. It's to me that it's totally inaccurate. I mean, from my perspective, I've never heard from the NRA one time. And I know a couple of people who were members, but most of my friends who were all gun-toting didn't have anything to do with the NRA at any time.
Well,
and they would all support the Second Amendment. I mean, to them, the NRA is like the ABC. I mean, no, who cares? Just some group that's out there that also is on your side. It's not like...
Well, they did one little investigation, said out of all of the people that walked in and shot people up in the mass, none of them were NRA members.
Well, sure.
And of
Well,
course,
exactly.
NRA promotes safety.
Yeah.
And they have, they put the classes together, learn
Yeah.
how to do this responsibly. And
Yeah, they must give a lot of lobbying dollars to some
they certainly do.
Republicans.
There's no question. But again, it's sad that you have to go to Congress to preserve something that's written in the Constitution that they were sworn to uphold.
Well, everything is like that, though. It's all subject to the people who are alive today.
I know, but it shouldn't be, as far as I'm concerned. I'm telling
Well,
you,
I know,
take
but
it literally.
that's part of it.
If
That's
you don't,
the whole
this
point. The
living
whole
Constitution
argument is whether or not history is cyclical or progressive. And the one side thinks, well, we're moving in some direction, and so you want to get
Backwards.
there. Well, and the other side is like, look, if you do that, you'll take us backwards because
Yeah.
it's a cycle, and you'll take us back in the cycle, and you're not advancing anything. You're just going around, and so that's
Well, every
debate.
empire in the last 10,000 years has ultimately crashed.
well
Because-
up till now.
Yeah, up till now, right? Yeah. One of the last things I've got here as kind of a lightish note. No, I got two more things.
Okay.
One is run for the hills. It turns out that 3 massive black holes are going to crash. NASA is worried about this. They warned,
Yes.
and they said these 3 massive black holes are going to create a problem, a trio
I've got it.
of hungry black holes, doomed to smash together in a collision of epic proportions, and has warned astronomers that have discovered these 3 supermassive monsters that appear destined to crash into each other. This would be Titanic, event which caused a gigantic outburst of energy and could even lead to the merger of 2 of the beasts. However, our understanding of what happens to black holes is limited.
Limited.
And we don't know anything, and we know that they do this at the center of galaxies, but we can't explain how they managed to do
Yeah.
any of this. And of course, when you think about it, these are black holes in galaxies. Okay, now in case you're interested, the nearest galaxy, not the nearest star, but the nearest galaxy is what? I don't know.
2 million light years
2
away.
million light years away. That's a galaxy.
That's Andromeda.
Yeah. Okay.
But then there's
and it's not that one though. It's,
No.
it's another one that's 30 million light years or whatever.
yeah. And
I'm
there's some
saying
weird-
run for the hills.
well, yeah. Well, there's a little local cluster of galaxies within about 5 million light years.
Okay.
That we're a part of, called the
Okay.
local cluster.
The local cluster.
And then there's the local group,
Oh,
of which our local cluster is a part. And there's or I might have those reversed, but that's probably within that group. But I've got a great image here from NASA for that whole thing there. So, and there it is.
There's the black hole. Thank you so much. That's it. And nothing shall
This
escape
is what
the
they
black hole.
think is going to be the result right there.
I guess, yeah. That's it. End of everything.
That's it.
The entire universe will be sucked into a black hole. Well, it'll start over. It'll
Yeah.
pop out on the other side in a singularity.
Yeah.
Start
yeah.
over.
No, when they say nobody knows, they mean nobody
Yeah,
knows.
that's right. I looked at this and I thought, run for the hills, because Now I will say this: that since they have observed it, if it's 10 or 20 million light years away, that light is here. So
Yeah.
So whatever the explosion could have occurred, I don't know, yesterday, and it could have occurred right away after that light, and
Yeah.
so the explosion
Could hit any day.
Yeah, it could hit any day.
Well,
So
and
that's
now
what
we've
I'm
got
saying, run for
we've got that.
go under your desk.
And we've got the big gravity detector now.
Yeah.
That would pick up wave fluctuations. That's
Right.
how they got the first signal, was from
Right.
two hyper fast circulating black holes. But
Yeah.
it's interesting. There are a couple of cool phenomena out there. I mean, when I hear that two black holes are going to collide, my guess is this is on a geologic time scale.
Yeah.
So this is 100,000 years from now or
Right.
something. So there is one thing out there, though, that could happen any day, which is the explosion of Betelgeuse in the Orion constellation.
Okay.
Because it's already doing an oscillation where its diameter expands out to the size of
No, this is not the movie with Michael? What's
No.
Okay.
the big red star up
Yeah,
in the
okay,
sky.
the big one.
That's it. And what happens is it actually grows and shrinks because it's in the death throes.
Okay.
And so at any minute now, its next shrink, like it goes from the size of the diameter being Jupiter, like as big as our whole solar system or half of our solar, and then it collapses in on itself again and gets half that size.
Okay.
And so, but it could blow at any time. And then that would light up the sky a little bit. It would be like it could be as bright as the moon at night. We could have a whole separate glowing.
Well, of course, it would have already happened many years
Yes,
ago.
yes.
And
It's
whatever
800 light years away.
and of course, if it happened 100 years ago,
Right. If it happened
the-
799 years ago.
right, the gamma rays could be on their way.
Right.
And-
Well, but it's too far away.
It is too far away, right? And they're always talking about the gamma ray burst
Yes.
from some places that is aimed someplace, but
Well, within like the good news is that there are not a lot of stars within a dozen or 24 light years from us.
okay.
So maybe a few, maybe 20 stars or so within 50 light years.
Yeah.
And so it would have to be one of those.
Right.
And also, the good news is if you could get over on the other side of the Earth real quick.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Although you wouldn't get any notice because the gamma rays would be traveling the speed of light also. So
It would, well, if you happen to be on the other side, and
Yes.
and you're looking up at the
Aurora Borealis at the
it
rim.
comes over you,
That's right.
and then you go back home and it's nothing.
Exactly.
It's just
a cinder.
it's cinder on one side of the planet. Where are we going to land? We know. Go back.
Gone. Yeah, it could happen.
No, yeah, it could happen. Okay, now the last thing I have
Uh-huh.
has to do is actually, this is kind of interesting. The Treasury's housing plan would pave the way for another financial crisis.
Yes.
Not having learned their lesson
Yeah, no.
in 2008. Okay, here we are 11 years later, and they're going to recapitalize Fannie and Freddie, who in 2008 held about half of the mortgages. And they held them on this, bring them on, we don't care. It doesn't matter. And this was in the day. I remember doing this. I remember the bank called me and said, "We see that your mortgage is at X percent, and the rates are lower
How would you
now.
like to lower it?
Well, how would you like to lower it? You come in and sign here. No credit check. No nothing. We will need to take your pulse." And then and it went through just like that. This was pen type upper writing, quill pen underwriting or whatever it was.
Well, and
And they knew, the brokers knew, the mortgage brokers knew they could dump, and the banks knew they could dump this off immediately no matter what.
right. Well, and the reason they could dump it off is because Freddie and Fannie got backed by the U.S. government.
Right.
So that any loan that you put out there, any mortgage, if you used the certified Freddie and Fannie loan mortgage application document,
Right.
and you got one of those loans, then it was backed by the United States, which meant that it could be bundled into a security
Right.
with other loans, other mortgages, and that security would be rated AAA.
Right.
Because it's 100% in theory backed by the government. So that is what led to those collateralized debt agreements, the CDOs.
Well, it's interesting because what you would do is when you'd bundle these things, you'd bundle some good ones in there, and supposedly.
It didn't matter.
Didn't matter,
At
right.
the end, it didn't matter.
But the other thing is though that the ratings agencies were kind of under the gun because
Well, they're in a rock and a hard place.
Right.
Because on the one hand,
Right.
they're government backed, so they have to be AAA. By the letter of the law, they're all backed by the government.
Well,
But-
I don't know. Was it the letter of the law?
Yes.
Was it just implied that Freddie and Fannie were get back out of the government? Was there any? I was under the impression that there was not any line item that said ultimately you can go to the government, but it got to the too big to fail business. I don't know.
Yeah, well, there were nuances at the end, but and there basically if you had gotten an FHA loan,
Right.
then
Yeah, that's federal housing, right? Or a
you
VA
were-
loan.
right? Those
Right.
were
Those were
protected
that- yeah, absolutely.
100%.
Yeah.
But anything else was in theory protected still, and there were ways, and the whole thing got litigated. It was a huge financial or litigation nightmare, which I profited off handsomely. But they are doing it again by making this housing affordable. The problem is they've got conflicting goals. They want housing to be affordable for everybody. They want everybody to have a house, chicken in every pot, car in every driveway, keys in every door, whatever it is. And you can't. This is another untenable operation by the government to try to create value where there is none.
Right.
You can't give somebody a job for more than they're worth, and you can't give somebody a house who can't afford it.
Right.
And the way how it's decided whether they can afford it is the credit agencies and the banks. People who evaluate people's ability to afford stuff professionally. That's what they do. That's their whole job, is evaluating risk. And you have to let that happen. If you try to mandate it by law, you'll distort the whole market.
That's what they did with this redlining business and everything. They said not allowed to take risk into account. In other words,
Right.
when you have somebody come in here and you look at it, this guy's credit.
Anti-redlining statute.
Anti-redlining, right? That's right. I'm sorry, and and so you had to take all comers,
Right.
And of course, the mortgage brokers didn't care because it wasn't, they were getting paid. They cut their commish, and it went on
As fast as I can sign.
as fast as they could sign. Well, I thought that was interesting because under the plan, Fannie and Freddie would be fully recapitalized, probably allowing them to keep an all portion of their profits by selling shares. They can sell shares to the public. I remember for years and years and years on Wall Street, the guy, one of the major guys was a big Fannie and Freddie acolyte because he said you can't lose. You should buy these shares, and I mean, because they paid a dividend, and it was safe, and for 20 years at least you couldn't lose. Well, guess what? So the Treasury makes it clear that they will continue to be backed by the government, a benefit for which they will be required to pay. That is to say, as the same thing with the Federal Reserve, they pay money to the government for the privilege of being backed. And the banks, in fact, I don't know if you know this, but the banks put money with the Federal Reserve also, so that you have a Federal Reserve backing on your bank deposits up to $100,000 or whatever it is. The Treasury says the purpose of the recapitalization is to protect the taxpayers in the event that the two firms fail again. Of course, the problem is the taxpayers would not have to be protected if the companies were adequately capitalized. I mean, if they had all the capital they needed, they wouldn't need the government, supposedly. If they actually had all the capital, they could afford, when you look at some...
Right, if it were a profitable business.
Right.
Then you would have to actually take risk into account.
Right.
And so, like I said, they're trying to create an animal that just doesn't exist it's
Well, again,
it's dependent on the state to survive.
Indeed, it should be clear by now the government backing for private profit-seeking firms is a clear and present danger to the stability of the U.S. financial system, and we saw that. I mean, they had to do the bailout, or else, and all the people were running like chickens with their head cut off, saying the whole system's going to collapse. And so we had to come up with $800 billion. And actually, it was more than that. $1 trillion had to come up to bail out people because they were too big to fail. And if you think this is not going to happen again,
for the super spending that we've had ever since.
Right, exactly. So the thing I look at, as we've talked about with Ed, talked about a lot, is what they call the moral hazard. And the moral hazard is once you get into something like this.
Well, right after they did the $800 billion, ever since then, we've spent $1 trillion a year extra over and above.
Right.
Because hey, they got away with it the first time.
Right.
Why back off now?
Yeah.
So
yeah, it pays big money to be a broker on Wall Street, I guess.
I'm sure.
So anyway, let's see. Implicit government. Let's see. Minimal. Let's see. When they had minimal capitalization in the old days, but an implicit government guarantee. That's what I was talking about before. Apparently, it was not a line item, but everybody knew it. Profitability was easy. Most of the housing finance market was open to them, and they could set their pricing levels that the private people couldn't match. So if you wanted to sell your mortgage, you sold it to, you didn't sell it to a private people to buy the mortgage. You sold it to Freddie and Fannie because they would buy it at a price that the local people couldn't do. I remember this. I'm being a little I remember when I bought mortgages, for instance, and what I did was I bought second mortgages. Now, but I was able to go look at the house. I was able to see what the first mortgage was, and I personally would say the house is worth more than that. And I'm protected. And it's interesting to see this because I was on the other side. This is like in the 70s. I was on the other side sometimes when I was buying foreclosed houses that had second mortgages. And what happened was they weren't even worth. They were how can I put this? They were underwater. And the second mortgage people couldn't pay off the first mortgage people that were foreclosing because they weren't getting paid. And what happens is as you know, having dealt with this, there's a hierarchy, and if you have first mortgage, second mortgage, third mortgage, I actually remember going to bid on a house that had 4 mortgages on it. And it was the first mortgage holder, no, it was the second mortgage holder that was foreclosing. Well, that foreclosed the third and fourth mortgages out, and they were there. They were standing there, and they watched their money disappear. And of course, the reason I bought the second mortgage was I got the advantage of the third. I got the freebie on the third and fourth, and I looked at the house, and I had already been to the bank on the first mortgage. Said, "Can you float me on that?" They said, "Yeah, you go ahead. We trust you." So the point being that the private people could buy mortgages and did, but when all else failed, you went to Freddie and Fannie. But the way private people bought mortgages, you went and looked at the property, and of course what we did have in those days, we had appraisers, and of course a lot of times it was during I remember in the 70s there was kind of a housing boom here in Gainesville when Nationwide opened up, and suddenly there's an influx of 1,000 new buyers, and a lot of them had to get loans and stuff, so forth. And so we would go to this house that had sold 5 years ago for $40,000, and it was on the market for $50,000, and the people came down and said, "Yeah, we'll take it." So then the appraiser would go out there, and basically he knew what the price was that it was being sold for, and basically the appraisal would pretty much come back at that price. That's to say, yeah, okay, $50,000. If we found a willing buyer to pay the $50,000. Now, the one thing the appraiser did do, and I think that's one of the reasons why it was okay, was this was an actual buyer, one guy. This is not a speculator. This is a guy who was going to move in. And so they took that into account and said, if this guy who's going to bring his family down here from New York, and he's going to move in, and he's willing to pay $50,000, and he's got the money, then fine, he can have it. And I think that was it.
Well, I guess we'll see what happens with the real estate market. I understand in New York is right now in free fall again.
Yes. Well, those are the really expensive ones.
Right.
Yeah.
Now that's after
East Side Manhattan or whatever.
That's and if that's true, that's after a huge run up.
Yeah.
Because they've been going up to ridiculous $100 million and stuff.
Can you imagine a penthouse?
No, that's ridiculous.
In New York?
Well, it's just the whole point is that you could buy like a country for that. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
you know, and the size of the company that you could get.
I
mean,
wonder if Epstein's Island is for sale.
seriously, it's not 100 million.
No.
I mean, it's
No.
that's the
Chump
kind of thing.
change.
But I guess if you got to live in New York, you gotta live somewhere there. So that's all you got there.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Okay, let's see. I got a couple of real quick things. Let's see. Oh, speaking of the Netherlands, did you see the farmer protest?
No.
So a whole bunch of farmers, like thousands,
Okay.
got in their tractors
Okay.
and drove down to wherever
Yeah.
and clogged up traffic and everything.
Yeah.
And basically put on a big presentation because they're all upset because there's a proposal on the table to cut farming, specifically raising cattle, by 50% in order to combat climate change.
Yes.
Exactly.
Oh my
and
God.
they're like, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah.
Like, we need this stuff today, and you're talking about 1% of 1%. I mean, this is Netherlands share.
Okay.
I
Right.
mean, this is
It's like what we did
nothing.
here with our biomass
Seriously, and this, I mean, it's amazing. But this ties directly into a couple of other things that happened this week. I saw a report from a solar, not geologist, but solarologist or whatever.
plant. Yeah. Okay.
And heliologist. There you go.
Okay.
And so her take was that we are now entering in 2020 a super grand solar minimum.
Okay.
Where 4 different magnetic waves of the sun are going to baseline, basically crater.
Okay.
And so we're going into, from 2020 to 2055, according to her, we're going to see cooling on the order of the last solar minimum, which was the Little Ice Age.
Okay.
At the end of the 16th or 17th century, beginning.
I can believe it, and I'll tell you.
I'm with her on it, and then she talks about that it flips back again at 2055, and then it goes for another 500 years, and it makes sense when you look backwards through time. But the point is that this is a study, and it says that, and so what I'm saying is that thank God that we warmed the place up a little bit.
Yeah.
With all the CO2, if we
Right,
did,
right.
because otherwise things would be really cold, and cold periods in history suck. Crop failures, there's way more deaths associated with cold events than with heat events. So we got plenty of time to get out of the way of flooding and things like that, but we may have staved off a little bit of the cold. And I'm saying, before we get too hippity-hoppity on this whole CO2 thing, we might want to consider staving off the next ice age as well,
Yeah.
because that technically is right around the corner, and if we could avoid that, I think that would be
Well, for me personally, I'm upset
why.
because when you have this solar minimum, and see, I was a ham radio operator in 1957 when we had.
You're not going to be able to talk to squat during this thing.
Yeah. In 1957, the sunspot cycle was at a record high, and man, you could hang a wet string out the window on your little 5-watt transmitter and talk to Australia, Japan, Russia. It didn't matter. And then I remember in '67, it's 11-year cycle, the solar cycle. It was down a little, but still, it was really magnificent. This year, it's spit.
Yeah.
I mean, the bands don't open up. You're lucky to talk. You can run 2,000 watts and talk across the street.
Well,
it's terrible.
The 11-year, I think, is the big one, or one of the big ones.
Yeah,
but
but
there's
it's-
also like a 30 or a 5 or
But it's been heading down, is what I'm saying.
right.
I can tell you right now from my experience in ham radio, is that every year it's been less
Well,
and
it's
shorter.
going down,
Right.
and
So
down.
this is
until-
why I'm on it, and I'm a little upset.
Now, the good news is you'll be able to talk to a lot of people in 2055.
That's true, and of course the piece of good news is these lungs only have to hang on for another 11 years to the singularity,
There you go.
and then I'm done. Then I can easily make it into the 2055, and CQDX.
That's right. All right, and then finally, Southern California passed a law which allows college athletes, to
I saw that.
solicit endorsements.
All right.
So they are finally, I think, going to be able to get paid
Right.
something during their college years to compensate them.
Is that
for-
good or bad?
To me, it's awesome. It's
Okay.
great. And I don't know how onerous the law is, and it certainly, I don't think it's as sweeping as I would want it to be,
Really?
which would allow them to do whatever they want and also force the colleges to pay the kids. I think it's an independent contracting sort of thing where, like, if you're the star player on the team, you can go down to Nike and get your shoe and get your $1 million or whatever it is.
Okay, well, let me just play a little bit of the devil's advocate. That immediately I had seen that, but I hadn't really thought about it. But let me just add this into the mix. First of all, they're on full scholarships.
Okay. so
They
that's
get
what's
free
something.
food, board, and education.
Yeah.
Which in this day and age could be worth a couple $100,000.
Okay.
So it's not exactly that they're
So
they're
factor
being
that
paid
in.
in kind.
Well, they're being paid that's a tiny fraction of what they're worth to the university.
Well, you say that. That's true. But what about the other, literally 90% of the universities that are not like here at the University of Florida?
Well, too bad. You compete for those students. That's why you compete for athletes and try to get that would make it, you'd be more competitive to get to those students is what it would be.
Again, what I'm saying here is that,
Look, if you make $1 million a year off of some guy because you're selling jerseys and everything, so you give them $200,000 in tuition and room and board and whatever. You're cranking it. You're making $800,000 off of the kid. You're
but that's what, look, think about it. The guy that works the forklift or whatever in some big plant, he's getting paid a fraction of his value. His value to the company, obviously, if he's getting paid, $60,000 a year, he could easily be worth $600,000 to the company because of what he does.
Okay, well,
I mean, that's what it's all about. Is productivity.
Yeah, well, I mean, I would say not 600,000. I mean,
But he's certainly damn sure worth more than he's getting, or else he wouldn't be hired. Same thing we do with the minimum wage.
Yeah, but it could be 20% more or something, or
Could be.
50%.
And of course-
but what it is in the college football thing is it's way more. They're worth millions of dollars to the school, these individual kids, and they're not getting anything. I mean, they're getting 200,000 or whatever, but that's a fraction.
Greedy.
No, this is just just let the market decide.
Well,
I mean,
you say that, but I've just got finished watching for the 100th time Moneyball. One of my most favorite. I love this Brad Pitt movie. If you get a chance, and this is where the Athletics, they used a computer to figure out where they had like a tenth the money of the Yankees, and they almost won the series. In this 2002, I think, but. The point being, they made do with what they had. Now, a lot of colleges, I would say 80% of the colleges that have a football type program, they can't afford to pay them anything.
Well, then you don't have a football program.
You don't.
No, look, that's the difference between choosing this school or that school. Are these guys AAA? Do they have a program? I mean, that's all. It's all part of the market. You just let everybody decide.
Well, I'm a big fan of the market. That's no question. I am totally a big fan of the market. I'm with you on that.
There's a huge distortion in the market right now because the NCAA has a monopoly on all money that people make in their games.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Did the NCAA say that they were okay with this, or they're going to be a suit?
I think, I don't know. My guess is they're going to fight it, at least in part. Because obviously this is a major inroad into their monopoly. So why wouldn't you fight tooth and nail?
Yeah. Well, we'll find out.
Yeah. So
we will keep you up on that.
All right, and then I guess I do have one final thing. This is just
another final thing. Okay.
Yeah, this is just a light note here. I'll start the music. But I saw a story on Yahoo News.
Always to be believed.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's exactly right. This just tells you the condition of the news today, all right? So the story was teachers are turning to sugar daddy dating site to supplement their income.
Saw that.
And it went on to say, instead of taking extra jobs. And I was like, well, that's taking an extra job.
Right.
And but it was just so funny. Like, obviously they're trying to paint this horrifying view of the education system. This is an advertisement for money to be fed in the education system. but it's put out there as a story. And to
Well,
me,
you got to ask yourself. I'm sorry. What is this sugar daddy doing? Ponying up the teacher.
Well,
He looks suspiciously like prostitution.
well, right, but that's the implication.
Okay.
The whole point is what they're saying is we don't get taxed enough money for education because our teachers are turning to prostitution.
Okay.
That's what the read between the lines headline is basically.
Yeah, okay.
But it's crazy because it's like, look, come on, man. It's this is what are they like? Is there a high demand for bad teacher fantasies or something?
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Come on. Sell the schools off and
Boy, that's the truth
and
too.
everything will work itself out. So, hey, thanks for joining us. Scott, appreciate you hanging out. And Kenny, thanks for the note. We will be back on Sunday, that's right. So, join us at that time. And thanks for stopping by.
Homecoming is Saturday
Yeah.
here.
I'll have Jimmy answer your notes there, Scott. Thanks for chiming in.